Let's go.
Family dinners.
De Niro's the one that plays Carson.
It's a cute little place down there.
Well, maybe we could do breakfast in the morning.
I just have so much stuff that I spread it around the whole house.
You talk about life.
Thank you.
Real life.
$24 for 2 tickets.
What life is.
Dakota City.
What you want it to be.
Bourbon Street don't do it for me.
What twisted hand life deals you.
I mean, it's an amazing story. And
But the Watson family invited me to this family dinner.
Nice to meet y'all. In person.
Chicken parmigiano.
To talk about death.
There's a great quote from Voltaire, centuries old. To the living you owe respect, but to the dead you owe the truth.
Murder, really.
And so, you know, it's like, why would you lie about that to us?
Because the Watsons have lots of unanswered questions.
How are they going to know that?
What do you do with this?
What kind of police work is that?
Like who killed their daughter, sister, niece, friend, Nanette Krentel.
The family of a North Shore woman found shot to death.
Shot to death in a burned-out home.
The couple's Lacombe home. Wife of Covington area fire chief
Found
Steve
shot in her burned home in July.
Murder.
And you think being the wife of the fire station.
Hey, this is Steve. Can you get a call as soon as you get this, please? A cell phone.
Dad called and said, Kim, Nanette's dead. And I just, what? And just immediately started screaming, they killed her. Pretty much just like this.
Fire chief's wife tragically dies in a fire, or so everyone thought.
The fire was Friday. We arrived Monday.
And as soon as we pulled up, I pulled Kim aside. I said, this ain't right. This hasn't even, nobody's even investigated this.
We're in the preliminary stages.
You're in Louisiana, you don't have basements.
We're just trying to determine the area of origin.
It's a single-story house.
There's a number of scientific things that we have to
You
do.
don't die in the fire in the middle of a day when you sleep normal
By the
hours.
looks of this scene, it's going to take us several days to do
There's
that.
just no reason for you not to get out.
One of the things that strikes me about today is the fact that the family was not told for nearly a week that Nanette had suffered a gunshot wound to the head.
The news that Krentel died from a gunshot wound
Minutes before Nanette Krentel's funeral,
came during her memorial service Friday.
sorrow turned sinister.
My cousin Gina had found an article that someone had leaked something.
When news broke about the bullet.
Right before you go into the memorial service.
Yes, we all knew she had been shot in the head.
And you found out through a blog.
Yes.
I immediately knew that she was killed.
I apologize for not giving them the heads up before they got the information from the media.
Steve Krentel wouldn't talk on camera for this story, but he said, quote, "That's the part that really bothered me, was the way that came out. I was completely numb. I stayed numb for well over a month where I didn't really know what was going on."
Is there any doubt in your mind that she was murdered?
She was murdered, and I think brutally.
And if you're not giving them the truth, why not? I think that's the questions that just keep lurking over everybody. Why not?
Sheriff Randy Smith.
Hey,
Detective Buckner.
how you doing?
Well, we're doing good. We're getting some information out to you guys.
The night of my sister's memorial, Steve calls my brother and tells my brother that you are leaning towards suicide. I call you and I tell you that there is absolutely no way I would bet my only child that my sister would never shoot herself. And you tell me that women shoot themselves all the time. They shoot their children, they shoot their husbands, they can possibly shoot their pets. And so that's when I told you I did not trust you.
A week after the fire, family members say Steve Krentel told them detectives suspected Nanette committed suicide.
Did Sheriff Smith directly insinuate to you that he thought
Yes.
this was a suicide, that
Yeah.
Nanette had killed herself?
To myself, Randy and Kim were also there, but we all three heard him say suicide.
2 months after her death, St. Tammany coroner Dr. Charles Preston publicly declares Nanette's death a homicide. Later that day, Smith issues his own public statement saying, quote, "At this time, the sheriff's office investigation does not necessarily support the coroner's conclusion in this case." Fast forward 24 hours.
We have worked this case and will continue to work this case tirelessly and aggressively as a homicide, and we have since day one.
Things just were not adding up.
The Watsons worry investigators' early suspicion that Nanette committed suicide may have kept them off the trail of the person who killed Nanette. So the Watsons commissioned their own autopsy.
We're in a hotel room in Nebraska with Dr. Thomas Bennett. You went down and actually took a look at Nanette Krentel's remains.
I did.
This is his report. Basically, it says there are 3 main scientific reasons Nanette did not kill herself.
Death is not instantaneous. Death is a process. If you have complete cessation of breathing, you still will have circulation for a period of 5 or 6 minutes.
1. There was no soot in her lungs, not even microscopic particles of it, which Bennett says would have been present even if she took 2 breaths near the fire.
Did she stop breathing before the fire started?
She stopped breathing before the fire ever got to her.
2. Her body didn't blister as it burned. Bennett says it's an indication the fire didn't reach her body until she was completely dead. And 3. Bennett says he saw very little blood around Nanette's body in crime scene photos.
A gunshot wound to the head would bleed copiously. You would find a large area around this on the floor. With debris falling around, fires tend to burn up, so any of that blood that would be down there on the floor around her would be still present.
But he didn't see it in the photos, and you don't see it here in this footage either. Meaning she could have been killed somewhere else, even hours before the fire, and her body moved to the master bathroom where she was found.
We were able to conclude very easily that this was a homicide and not a suicide.
Doug Johnson is a longtime homicide investigator in Iowa. He teaches classes on it, and he was with Dr. Bennett during their autopsy of Nanette's remains.
What do you think about the possibility that she killed herself?
I think it's impossible.
We've spoken with a number of investigators familiar with the case who, to this day, still think there's a chance Nanette Krentel killed herself.
I think the likelihood of her accidentally or intentionally taking her own life is 0.
What would this dinner be like if she was sitting here?
It'd be louder and there'd be more laughing. Yeah, she had a laugh that just awesome. Yeah, she'd catch herself like starting to laugh and then it would get louder.
But in recent years, behind Nanette's laughter was fear.
It just seems like what she was telling us, she wasn't being heard.
Heard by investigators, her family says, after the murder. Heard by her husband before.
I should have called her. I should have gone down there. I should have made her come up here. It was all too late.
You see, Nanette was afraid, to the point that she asked Steve to install extra security cameras around their Lacombe home.
Why is it all of a sudden the cameras weren't working that day?
Steve went out and bought several guns, 20 gauge Remington for Nanette, 12 gauge for himself, and they began practicing regularly.
Family members say Nanette wanted Steve to protect her, causing friction in their marriage.
This is the statement she always made. As long as I have my guns and the cameras and I'm at home, I'm safe.